Hey everyone, with you Elena Litvinova. I'm software engineer, and in this lesson we will study how it works with hooks, useMemo, useCallback and React.memo. Last one is not a hook. In this lesson we try to cover quite deep how to work with these hooks. We firstly to understand how to use them. After it we go through a lot of different examples where we look at how components re-render. Also we will study which mistakes you can have when you started to work with memoization hooks, and especially with React.memo. And also we will speak about how should to use these hooks, when it should to use, when it should better not to use. When I prepared to this video, I read a lot of different articles, and I want to say massive thank you my colleagues from Love Holidays company where I work, Ivan and Artem. They provided for me a lot of different links to study how these hooks works, and all these links I put in description under this video, and you will also be able to read. Okay, before we start our video, not forget to subscribe on this channel and press bell icon and go to study hooks. Psh. Okay, let's start. Before I prepare a special project for this video that we could study on real examples and look how everything render and just go through the code. And because of it, if you want to go through this journey with me, just go to this repository, clone this project and install on your machine. All links I put under this video in description. Okay, cool. Well, I already have this project. Actually, I have small changes here. Might be I just make a comment here. Yes, I think that you really could start with me with the same code. Okay, this is a Next.js project. Next.js it is a framework for working with React. Really quite easy for installation, and I decided to use it for this lesson just because I didn't want to install Webpack and etc. For me it was just only important that everything started work as fast as possible. Okay, after when you download this project, it looks like that. We have main component, which is home, and inside we have my heavy component, and we will study this part. Okay, let's start to study hooks useMemo, useCallback and React.memo. First of all, let's look how they looks like and how we can use them. Okay, useMemo hook, it's about memoization. How you know React render all the time component if, for example, we change any state at home. For example, we have a state, set my theme. For example, set my theme and use state. First it could be black, for example, by default. And we could have in React a lot of different states in each component. Also, it could be different props which could change from the parent components. And this component will be re-rendered all the time when any of these state changes, or for example if parent change and pass new props, or it just only if parent change and use this component inside. And sometimes we don't want that some functions or calculations was rebuilt. For example, we can have here function, yes, my heavy computation, and here I don't know, could be any function which quite difficult for calculation. It could be any for example animation, or you try to calculate, I don't know, factorial. We will work with factorial, something what is not super fast could be. And all the time when this component re-render, it means that we go through all this code and create again this function. If we, for example, call it somewhere, calculate my heavy computation, it means that all the time when this component re-render, we will calculate all the time. And for excluding this situation, we can use hooks like useMemo and useCallback as well. We look on them now. Okay, how we can use memo hook? With everything we will play a little later. For now, I just try to explain syntaxes, how you can use them. Okay, heavy computation. For useMemo, this is a function, and what we need to do. For example, I have a constant calculate. Okay. useMemo, this is a function. Inside of it, we have callback, and what we return in this callback will save in this variable. It means here what we return in this callback. For example, we have here a function. Could be like that. Here my heavy calculation and return value, result of this calculation. This I remove, and this I also remove. And second argument to useMemo, we pass an array where we could pass some arguments when this value will change. It looks like cache. React cache this value inside of it. If we pass empty array, it means that we calculate everything inside just only one time. But if, for example, this calculation depends on any state which we use in our component or props, we should pass it here. Like that. And this calculation will update only in time when my theme, for example, updated, and only in this time. Like that, we can use useMemo hook. And here we will be available, for example, for now is object. What we return in this function will be saved here. And we just can use, for example, this variable in our component. What is about useCallback? useCallback, it's also like useMemo, but this is for functions. If we have any on click, with on heavy click, let's heavy click, we can use callback, heavy click. And here we have a function, and actually this function will return here. And also we have here an array where we can also pass state variables or props from what depends this callback. For example, somewhere here I calculate something with my theme. I use this variable here. If I don't use this variable, I don't need to pass it here. Actually, useMemo and useCallback, they are really quite similar. And for example, if we here in useMemo return a function like that, yes, heavy computation, it will be the same functions. Yes. This is actually the same. Here we just return function, and here we will return function. This will be function, this will be for now also function or value which we return. Okay, this is what is about useMemo and useCallback. Let's look on React.memo. What is it? React.memo, it is not a hook, but it also it works slightly different. For example, we have a function fHome, for example, and after it we export our component which called home, and we can wrap with React.memo this component. And what it means? It means that, for example, we have component home, yes, and we use this component in another component. I mean, for example, we have global component application, and inside of it we pass home. For example, if in component application we could change something, and every single component which we have in our application will re-render. But if we, for example, don't want it, we can use React.memo function and wrap our component, and it means that this component will re-render only if props which we pass here, props, will change. Any single props will change, then we will render this component. Or of course inside of it, if you state, for example, change, we will render, but we will not render this component if props doesn't change. Yes, and for now, I just explained how you can use them in simple picture. Next, let's go to our examples and play on everything of it. We will look how everything renders and just for playing. Okay. I remove everything of it and go ahead. Here I return home, and yes, I think this I also can remove. Okay, and this also remove. I have a heavy component inside of it. Let's go to this component. In the folder components you can find my heavy component. Okay, what we have here, this is component which looks like that. Let's open our browser and looks what we have here. Before we need to start this project, if you just download it from GitHub, you need to do npm I, after it npm run dev. And on localhost 3000 you can open this project. I open inspector and we have component. What we have here? We have a button which could change theme from white to black and back. Also we have input where we can pass any number, maximum is 20. And it calculates factorial of this number. For example, I remove 0, factorial 2 is 2, 3, 6. And also we have here my oven time. It's just a number which grows all the time. Yes, and how you see, component all the time re-render just because we have this number. Let's look on our code. This is console.log. I just put it to show how component re-render. We have state theme. This is this used for this button, change theme. On click, if theme is equal white, we change it on black, and in other case, we change it on white. Well, what also we have next? We have a num for factorial. Current num, set current num, and error, it's also if we pass here more than 20. I just decided to show here that error because factorial is quite heavy function. Yeah, and I have small bug here because this error doesn't remove, but this is okay. Okay, next I have factorial current number, which we have by default. We have maximum 20. And if it's really number, not empty string, we calculate factorial. You can find this function here. This is quite difficult function because it have time complexity around 2 in power n. It is really quite high complexity factorial function. Okay, and last state which we have, it is my time, and in use additional use effect hook, I just put a set interval where we set new time each second. Okay, and there are also components with button where we use it. Next section, it is about factorial calculation with error, and for example on change we set new number, and when we set new number we calculate new factorial and show it here. And also we have a section with my own time. How you can look this component, it's quite heavy. I mean, there are a lot of different calculations here. Let's look for now when we should to use hooks like useMemo. We should to use this hook when we have, for example, heavy computation. And how you can see, We have a factorial computation here. How I said before, it quite difficult computation because just only time complexity. If you have, for example, animation or something around that, you really see that your application goes slow down and you really see that. Especially I think about animations because you have to save frames per second around 60 fps. Just your human eyes was really that to save really smooth animation. And if you see that your application started slow down, you should to think about optimization hooks like useMemo, useCallback and React.memo. Before you shouldn't use them because React quite good optimize it under hood. Okay, let's look on this function. For example, we have factorial computation. If I put console log here, factorial, and reload our page, I can see that all the time when we change time, my factorial calculate again and again and again and again. But I not change select number. Select number is the same and I don't need to recalculate factorial all the time. And because of it, I can use here useMemo hook. Let's try. I put useMemo. How we remember, it return for us value. I put here curly braces. Made return, and this function will depend from current num to us. Yes, if current number change, we recalculate our factorial. And let's put here factorial calculation. How you could see before it was a lot of different factorial calculation. It just because I put it in this function and we have recursion here, and for each number we have deep stack for recursion, and because of it we have a lot of factorial console.log. I put it here. It means just when we calculate factorial we will see just one console.log. Okay, let's look what we have for now. Re-render my heavy component. I can put here not re-render, just render, it's okay. We render my heavy component. After it, we calculate factorial. After it, we again and again render my heavy component because our time changes. Yes? But factorial we not calculate again and again all this time. And this is cool. We put useMemo here. Okay, we'll think about how we can optimize it. For example, we can separate it on different components because how we can see there is a button, and yeah, also I just want to show if we change term, we also not recalculate factorial. You also see. And let's look if I change number here. Oh, minus doesn't work. Need to add additional check-in validation. How you see I change number and a factorial calculation recalculate. Yeah, just only in when we change number. Well, let's separate our heavy component on several. We will do, I have prepared components here, factorial calculation, where I put it everything what we need. How you see there is no useMemo here. Also I for now remove here React.memo. We have just clear factorial calculation. Let's import it. Import factorial calculation from components factorial calculation. And inside of it, we just, what we do, instead of this code, I just put new component. And also we separate time inside of this new component as well. It's as our first optimization. If I not said yet, we not should use these hooks useMemo and useCallback all the time, because it could be over optimization, and before we need to try to optimize without them. But if it's not possible, then okay, use them. Okay, here we have what we have, my time. And this is my time component, and I also put it somewhere here. Okay, cool. Everything what is about my time is this component. And here I also have a console log just to show when it will re-render. Yes, put it in the beginning. And for factorial, I also thought that I have this, but I haven't. Because of it, let's put it here as well. Well, what we have? And after it, we should to remove everything what is about time and not about them. Okay, this function I also can remove. And this also not used in, is this also not used? Yes. Oh, my English, I love you so much. I hope it will be a day when I really will be able to speak much more clear. Okay, continue. And in this component, we only left theme, because theme it mostly looks like something global, yeah. But other things we just put in independent components. And let's look what we have here. Well, we have here, oh sorry, we don't need to put here components. Yeah, works. And let's look what we have for now. First of all, render my heavy component, after it render factorial calculation, and after it my time component. And it's calculate all this time, how we can see, because it changed, but factorial it doesn't touch. Yes. Okay, this is really awesome. And actually this is our optimization and it works. We even not use in factorial any useMemo hook, because it works without it. But let's look for example. For now I just stop this time, just to remove this noise. Just do things like that. Hop. We have my heavy component render, this component, inside of it we have render factorial calculation and my time. What will be if I change theme? If I change theme, my heavy component re-render, factorial calculation re-render, and my time re-render. And all the time when I change global component, inside of it my components re-render. And what we can do here, if we go into my heavy component, how we remember, here we have a difficult calculation with factorial, and it will be really cool if we will not re-render this component. And how it's possible to do? We can put, for example, useMemo here, but let's look on another optimization like React.memo, which we study. We will try with you memorize the whole component, and if our props which we passed in this component not changed, it means that this factorial calculation will not be re-rendered. And how it's possible to do? We just use React.memo and like that. Let's look what we have for now. First render my heavy component, factorial calculation and my time. After it, I change theme, re-render only my heavy component and my time. I change theme and only it. When I change number here, I can see render factorial calculation. Only when I change number here and not in any other case. Yes. And yes, I change them, then re-render. Okay, let's look what we could study next, some interesting situation which not everyone could knows with these hooks. For factorial calculation, we use React.memo. How I said before that this component will render if we pass props here and there change. How you can remember, in JavaScript we have primitives and objects. And primitives, for example, it is number, string, boolean values, undefined, null, symbols, big int. And for example, number primitive is equal 1. This is true. We can even to check this. This is true. But if we have different objects, this is not like that. This is false. One object is not equal the second one just because both of them had different links. And object could be equal second one if it's only the same object. And this is important part. Let's look on our component, and for example, we have any object, for example, array. Array is actually also object in JavaScript because have a prototype. Everything like functions, array, objects has prototype object. Inside of it, we have, I don't know, ID1, user name, Elena, Elena, Max, Igor, and for example, array with users, my users, or just only users, don't know. Yes, and we somehow need to use these users in my factorial components. We just pass it like props. And what we have for now, let's look on example. We render my heavy computation, render factorial calculation, render my time. I change theme and oh my god, render factorial calculation again and again. And all the time when we change this component, factorial calculation also render, but this is pure component. Pure means that it's wrapped in React.memo. And this is because all the time we create again and again new array and pass it here. And even if we not use these props here, we can use try users. Yeah, I hope it's called like that. Yeah, users. We can try somehow print, I don't know, even we not use, but link was changed. These users not the same, and because of it, we re-render this component. How we can exclude it? For this situation, we also can use useMemo and save our link. Actually, I just show you if we remove users from this component and save outside, yeah, then everything will be okay. How you see, factorial calculation not re-render because the link is the same. But if, for example, users depend on any, I don't know, state inside of this component or probes, yes, then we should to put it here. And because of it, because of factorial calculation is heavy component, we can wrap useMemo and put here for now just empty array because we not use any variable here from states. We use memo here and oh sorry, this is function. Yeah, how I could make mistake. This is function, useMemo, users, and I pass it here. What it means is that if we not change somehow this user, the link will be the same. Let's look on example. Okay, how we can see render my heavy component, render factorial calculation, my time, change theme, and how you can see factorial calculation not touch anymore. Okay, let's look on another problem. For example, we also have any on click or any event, or I don't know, we need to pass function inside, yes? And we also you also can see quite a lot in your application now when we pass into components functions. And for example, here just it could be simple calculation, never mind, any calculation, yeah. And let's look on example now. I changed them, and again factorial calculation, re-render. Oh my god, what I need to do. We look on array had all the time new link with functions the same, all the time create a new link. And because of it, our pure component, which is React.memo, also re-render. If we want that everything works properly, we should to create on click function and wrap it with, for example, useCallback. How we remember useCallback on we use for function. Yeah, and here we just pass this function and depend on some values which we have here, yeah. And we need to pass memoized function here, and then everything will be okay again. There is no any React factorial render factorial component. This is some interesting thing which you should to know before you use useMemo and useCallback. And for example, if you use React.memo, you really need to remember about these things, because if you, for example, pass any function like I did before, it means that you just lost your memoization here. Yes, just lost it. Because of it, not forget about this thing. Okay, what I also want to cover. React under hood is quite good optimized, and you shouldn't use useMemo and useCallback and any memoization just for all the time, wrap every single function and etc. Just because in this case you can over optimize your application and your application slow down because you have super optimized application. This is also not cool. The best decision, try to work without these hooks, and only if you feel this, yes, this calculation is quite difficult, use it. Yes, and only in these cases. Or for example, you really see that you need somehow stop re-renders in some cases. And if we have before here a simple function with some calculation here, for example, it's really quite simple. It doesn't need useCallback, but we used useCallback just because this is our heavy function with React.memo, and if we want that it works properly, we need to use useCallback and useMemo here. And also if you have, for example, simple array, just not for pure component, it not should to wrap with useMemo. Also, how I said at the beginning of the video, I work at Love Holidays company, and we had some cases interesting here where we use these hooks where we should optimize our application and maybe look on these hooks. For example, we had a form. We had for form special JSON object where it could be described, for example, input, this is select, and etc. And we have children components which render input, select, and etc. But for example, when error happens on a parent level, all components inside of this tree were re-rendered. And we had some problems here because we track some events. And for example, if errors happen, the whole tree after it was re-rendered. And for this purpose, it was possible to use these hooks and sometimes optimize application. Actually, I don't know how it was resolved, but yeah. I just only wanted to say, if you see problem you can try to optimize your application. And in React documentation also written that not should to use it all the time everywhere, because React also need to remember this object is memorize it, and I need to go to this link and put it here. Yeah. Okay, also what I wanted to say is that now React team investigate a lot of time to working on React, and in the future it's really possible that useMemo, useCallback and these hooks disappear from React. I mean all memorization. And I put video in description about this, and it looks really quite cool that you even will not need to think about memorization. But for now we have a React version like that, and we need sometimes to think that okay, this part I need to memorize, this part I cannot memorize, and looks really quite excited future for React. I also put under this video all links with articles which I read and prepared before this video. I hope that this video was really helpful for you and you started something new. If you have any example in your project when you really need memorization, please write a comment. And also for me interesting, do you have any case when you over optimize your application? Because in my practice I never see that you really slightly over optimize your application. I don't know, just use useMemo everywhere. And if you have this experience, also write a comment. It will be super interesting. Okay, I hope this video was useful for you, and of course not forget to subscribe on this channel, press bell icon, like button, and see you in next video with your Elena Litvinova. Bye bye.